Today, let's break down the changes that happened in the mid-season update, and trust me, there's a lot more than you think. There were some stealth changes. If you guys want to check out a specific weapon, there are timestamps in the description, but I will only be covering the guns that I've already done stat guides for. However, I have a lot more weapons that I've done stat guides on, just not in a video form. So if you ask for one, there's a high chance that I can cover it really quickly. At the end of the video, I'll tell you about the stealth changes that I said came with the update, and trust me, you'll want to know because they relate to the SMGs, and I'll also talk about what the new meta is going to be and what it will look like. So stick around if you want an advantage over everyone else. Now for the changes. We'll be going in alphabetical order, not by category. So the first one up is a Modern Warfare AK-47. Its upper torso multiplier got turned down, so this does affect its ranking in the damage category. It went down by 2 categories in the close range, and it went down by 1 at long range. This means you should definitely be using the AK-47 at longer ranges, and don't really try your luck at closer range. Now for a relatively new weapon, the C58. It got hit pretty hard in my opinion. Up close, it is now pretty average. It no longer can get amazing TTKs in the upper torso, so definitely try to use this more at range. And at range, it did get a little bit more balanced, so its lower torso is now average, so you have to be more accurate hitting upper torso and headshots if you want that better TTK. Its damage range did get increased by 2 meters, and more importantly, its recoil got an increase vertically, which makes it a little bit easier to control that side-to-side bouncing. But because you do have to pull down a little bit more, I did turn down its effective range to 140 meters instead of 145. The Carp 2 got its headshot multiplier going down by 0.1. I can't really figure out what this was supposed to do, but it has no change in its overall rating. The Fara saw its damage decreased in its first damage range, and it saw recoil increase as well. While this doesn't really seem to have an impact on its damage, actually before, you used to be able to get 2 headshots and drop your shots to kill by 1. Now, you need 3 if you want to do that. The recoil did get increased by quite a lot thankfully, and its negative recoil was removed. But it is still extremely easy to control, and I would still say this is the best long-range option. It is not, however, on the top of the easiest weapons to use. We'll get to that weapon pretty soon. Now for the FN Scar. It got hit pretty hard. It is no longer usable really at close range because you're not going to be only hitting upper torso shots, and even then, it's only average. And at longer ranges, it's pretty average, so I guess it's okay to use, but you can no longer get those great TTKs if you're hitting upper torso shots. While I haven't done a stat guide on the Grau, I did cover it fully when I discussed the Holger 26. And speaking of the Holger, the Grau is now better than the Holger in every possible way. So now the Grau has better damage and range than the Holger. So, Raven, give the Holger 1100 meters per second with its monolithic suppressor combination and increase its rate of fire, because there's literally no excuse anymore. And honestly, it should probably have that 36 damage on its head, because sure it has better mobility, but it will never have the same bullet velocity and stability that the Grau has. Now moving on to the Krig. Its minimum damage got increased from 25 to 26. Unlike the Fara, it'll be a lot harder to reduce your shots to kill, but at least it is dealing a little more damage and it will be easier to make up for those limb shots. However, its recoil was untouched. This makes it the easiest gun in the game to control and use. If the Fara's and C58's recoil is a little bit too much for you, then the Krig just may be for you. It doesn't deal as much damage as those two, but it deals damage consistently because you're more likely to hit your shots. So while this gun doesn't get an overall change in its rating, it is now the easiest gun to use for sure. A lot of you may have missed my M4A1 stat guide since it was in my first Warzone science video. As you can see, its damage got decreased up close, but at range, it got increased. And I'm not going to compare the old values because it has changed so much since then that it's better to just show you the new values. And if you can see the mobility, recoil, and damage, it's pretty average, and above average in certain areas. So this means that you can use it pretty much anywhere. It's like the Krig, it's easy to use, but it's gonna deal a little less damage. However, because it's a Modern Warfare weapon, its movement and sprint speeds aren't that great, so it's not gonna be like the Krig in the sense that you can just run around with it and use it as your primary weapon, but at least you can have it as a longer range option and still be pretty confident with it. While I haven't done a stat guide on the M13, I've talked about it in so many of my videos and even shown its full stats that I may as well update it here. So its minimum damage got increased from 19 to 20. This isn't enough to bring it up a category, but it reduces its shots to kill by 1 at range, and you can definitely feel this. Since it's one of the most accurate guns in the game, it's extremely easy to use, and its high rate of fire means you won't be missing any of your shots. However, it's still held back by its low magazine count, and its movement speed isn't the greatest compared to Cold War weapons. But important thing to say is that you will be outranging many of the weapons. However, the Krig is still probably a better option. So the MG34 got hit hard. I understand that they're trying to increase the TTK, but the mobility was already so bad and its recoil really wasn't that great, making it unusable at really long ranges. And now that they've done this to the damage, there really is no reason to ever run the MG34. So the MG82 was supposed to only get an ADS time increase, and it did get an increase by a whole 10 milliseconds. I expected 100, but I guess this is what they have to do. And I did mention in the last video that it got a secret recoil buff. It seems to have been undone and it's back to its old values. So its total score gets reset basically to what it was before. Now the Oden does have a extremely far first damage range, so we gotta remember that. But even then, 76 meters, you're not gonna get past 45 meters of range with this thing. So it's just not worth using anymore, because at least before, if you were aiming down and someone went in front of your sights, you could at least take them out extremely quickly if you're hitting upper torso shots. But now, it's just not really worth it. I wouldn't mind if they smoothed out the recoil later on in an update, because then it would kind of be usable at range, but we'll see what happens. Now, the PPSH got a small nerf from its maximum damage range, going down from 28 to 26, and this does decrease its potential with its headshots and its limb shots, but its upper and lower torso are unchanged. This makes this gun a little less forgiving if you start hitting limb shots, so if you can control your shots where they're going, then go for it, keep using this gun. I know that it is still a great weapon, but just be wary of this change. The Stoner 63's max damage went down by 1 point, and its upper torso went down by 0.1, and this was enough to change up the chart quite a bit. However, I think this is a reasonably good change. Since it no longer really has an upper torso multiplier, it's gonna feel extremely consistent and it will feel pretty good to use, and you'll know exactly when someone's gonna go down. And because its first damage range extends all the way up to 60 meters, between 30 and 60 meters, you'll be taking down people a lot faster than they would be able to take you out. So I think this weapon just became a lot better in pretty much every situation. However, its ADS time is still pretty bad, so don't try to use this as your close quarters weapon. Also, as a quick bonus, this is what the Swiss K31's ADS animation looks like, and what its reticle now looks like as well. So what's the state of the long range meta? Well, it's gonna feel pretty much the same. There will be less times where you just instantly beamed because someone with a Fara gets 2 headshots, but it's gonna feel pretty much the same. People with a Krig that happen to hit every single shot will be able to down you quickly, and you really won't have much time to react. However, those instances where you just randomly get beamed instantly and you're out even faster than you're expecting, that shouldn't be happening anymore thanks to the nerf to upper torso multipliers. As for assault rifles in close range in the meta, I don't think it's going to be happening anymore. I took a look at the close range ones that we've been using, like the AK-47 from Cold War and the XM4, and yeah, no, it's not going to be happening. This is quite nice because SMGs will finally have a more place in the meta again, and it won't be as easy to be running a sniper support assault rifle with a long-range sniper rifle. Now for the more interesting part, SMGs. There was a massive change to the SMGs, and it is so impactful that it could change the meta completely. Every SMG that says it got its minimum damage increased or decreased now has lost its 3rd or 4th damage drop-off. While I haven't covered them in videos, I have completed guides on weapons like the LC-10, the MAC-10, and the MP5, among many others. So if you want them, ask for them. But when I was testing the new weapons damage values for those, yeah, they're completely gone, the 3rd and 4th ones. This makes them a lot easier to use at range. So things like the AK-74 and the LC-10 just got a whole lot more competitive. Seriously, they basically turned the AK-74 into an assault rifle because it is less useful at close range than it is at longer ranges. I know the last time a change like this happened with the Modern Warfare weapons, it took other YouTubers months to figure this out. So I have a little hope that many of the people will be actually testing for these 3rd and 4th damage ranges this time. So we'll see if it gets a little bit more widespread. And it doesn't just apply to Cold War weapons. I tested the Fennec, and this applies to this too, but it may be a bug because I tested other weapons as well, like the MP7, and it is not affected. It still has its 3rd damage range. So keep this in mind and just maybe start building your SMGs for a little bit more range. So for close range weapons, the MAC-10 and the Modern Warfare MP5 are probably going to be your go-to weapons. The MP7, the PPSH, the LC-10, and AK-74 are better for longer ranges, but the AK-74 just can't compete at close range. And the LC-10 isn't dealing enough damage to the rest of the body that you pretty much have to rely on headshots and combinations with upper torso shots in order to get a good TTK. But the MP7 and the PPSH are pretty good, and you'll probably be wanting to run those if you want a sniper support weapon. Also for the Milano, you're pretty much not going to be seeing it very often anymore. You're going to need a lot of headshots and upper torso shots. Maybe it'll be okay at longer ranges if you increase its bullet velocity, but you can say goodbye to it being a super OP weapon. So as for the future of the meta, I'm not really sure what's going to happen. I think people will probably be going back to using things like the PPSH paired with the ZRG or the Swiss, and probably an assault rifle paired with an SMG, instead of an assault rifle paired with a sniper rifle. So if there's anything that you want me to cover from the update, let me know, and you may see a video extremely quickly because I have the data ready. And if there's any other part of the game you want me to cover, or any builds or weapons you want me to do a stat guide on, let me know, and you may see them on the next Community Wednesday. But that's the video. If you enjoyed it or it's helped you in any way, let me know by leaving a like. If you got any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section down below, and if you want to make sure that you never miss another video, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.